If you are an astrologer or an astrology student who would love a formal education in coaching, or a coach who would love to incorporate astrology into your practice, and if you're looking to make a sustainable career out of your love of astrology and coaching, this one is for you. I'm here today with Catherine Plano, the founder of Rise and Thrive Coaching Academy, an ICF certified school headquartered in Australia, but serving students virtually worldwide. Catherine is an international keynote speaker, executive coach, and leadership development professional with over 2 decades of experience transforming lives through spiritual and mental reinvention. She has developed a very unique ICF certified coaching program that incorporates astrology at its foundation and provides immediate opportunities for those who want to go into coaching as a career. I'm thrilled about our developing partnership. Catherine and her team are amazing to work with, and we've already had a whole cohort of Astrology Hub students who are going through Catherine's program with incredible results. I'll be interviewing some of them here on the podcast soon. Catherine, welcome back to the Astrology Hub podcast. I'm thrilled to be in conversation again with you today. And thank you so much for being here.
What an introduction, Amanda. It's such a pleasure to be back. I love it. I love you. I love the tribe. And honestly, I love our conversation. So I'm looking forward to our conversation today. Thank you.
Me too, Catherine. Okay, so I have to start here because something jumped out at me in your bio. You talk about spiritual and mental reinvention and helping people transform through this. It's super intriguing. But what does it actually mean? I would love to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess my first half of my life, I'm 58, so it was a long time ago. So I think the majority of my life is since I was 16, I've always dabbled, and it's part of my family as well, like my father and like my aunties. I've dabbled in crystals, tarot, you name it, Reiki, Seikhem, and then in my 20s into astrology, and it hasn't stopped. But what I really found was taking shape for me, there was a real psychological or mental aspect to the spiritual side. Obviously, and you hear the saying all the time that we are a human having a soul having a human experience. And so for me, the combination of the two go hand in hand, because when we're in spirit, we mentally and psychologically think in a very, very different way. When we're not in spirit, so when we're very external focused, our mental capacity is, it's almost like spread through the environment, and we're not being holistic in our approach. So I see them, they go hand in hand, but it's also, to me, it's how often do we think about what we think about? You think about it. We don't think about what we think about, lots of thinking words right now, on a regular basis. And I think the more that we sit with what is in our mind, what is this thought about? Why is this thought even here? This is where I think the spiritual evolution takes place. So I see them work hand in hand.
Okay. And you've dedicated your life to building this school, the Rise and Thrive Coaching Academy, and you have an interest in astrology. I mean, you've studied, you've practiced to a certain extent, and you've incorporated it into your coaching program, which is very unique. I mean, I know there's only a few ICF certified coaching programs in the world, correct?
That's correct. There's actually millions and millions. I think, I can't remember the stats, but there was like 30, 50 millions of coaches. I can't remember. There's lots of people that say they're coaches, but there's only 3,000 and something. They're actually ICF accredited. From an academy point of view, there's only 2 that are level 2 ICF accredited in positive psychology. And we went with positive psychology, and that links in with the mental and spiritual, because positive psychology is the driver for me. It was more so about resilience, well-being, mental health, and also just a lot of people taking their lives. And so what we're seeing and I can only speak for Australia, of course, but what we're seeing is a lot of people, there's great support mechanisms out there, don't get me wrong. But the thing is, we're not teaching our people how to look after themselves, how to fish kind of thing, right?
Right.
So with the Academy, absolutely, it's a combination of, I'm not an astrologist, by the way, so I've just put that out there. I'm not an astrologist. I've been dancing with astrology since my 20s. I've been in corporate for 30 plus years, in leadership, mainly leadership and executive, and in coaching for that long. And so what I've dabbled in is I started playing with a little bit of astrology in the executive space a few years ago. And the more that I played with it, the more that I brought it to life. And then I was more so thinking about how can I make it so tangible that people won't look at this as too woo-woo, because some do. Some do. They don't realize it's actually a science. Right. There's a whole it's magic that takes place when you bring the archetypes, or even the what we call the Astro Life Blueprint, which is basically a wheel with the 12 houses that we work through. And so the combination of the astrology and the corporate, they don't even know I'm using astrology. I don't even talk about astrology. Like, you don't even have to know astrology. If you did, obviously, absolutely, it will take everything to the next level. But going through and working with individuals at that level, really basic level, like some of our coaches are using our tools and they don't know astrology, but just to work on personal things like, for example, if you have a look at the Astro Life Blueprint, it could be, what we do is get the individual to assess how satisfied are you in these areas of your life? And it could be wealth, it could be finance, it could be identity, whatever that may be. And so they mark themselves out of 10 how satisfied they are. And then what happens is then we say, okay, so how important is it to you? And they go, well, I might rate myself a 3 in finance, but importance 10. And so we do this with the wheel. And as they can see, all we look for is the gaps. And so what it gives them a visual of, this is the area of my life that's not working for me. And so it's beautiful, because then we start working with that house. And so this is really basic as I'm talking. I'm not even bringing up astrology right there, right? But even working with that house, understanding the energy of the house, that sign in their house, and then the rule of that house, it helps me bring up questions that will be significant for that individual working through that particular house.
I love this, Catherine. And this is one of the reasons why Catherine approached me months ago about her school and why she felt like it was a great potential partnership for our students, because she was saying, a lot of my coaches, they're using astrology in this way. It's very, basic, but they don't understand it very deeply. And if they did, so if we had students who also understood astrology, it would just be that much more impactful. And so just in that little example you just gave of the Astro Life Blueprint that you use in your coaching sessions with leaders and, different people that are having coaching with you, understanding the house, there's so many levels of understanding houses. There's so many levels of understanding archetypes. There's so many levels of understanding the planetary placements and the aspects. It's like this continuous layer by layer unpacking. And so I can see exactly, if one of our astrology students was giving this assessment and they identified a certain house as where the biggest gap is, and then they could reference their understanding of the house ruler, of the, archetypal energies, and then reflect that back to someone in English, in a language that the people can understand. I can see how that would be just infinitely impactful in that kind of environment. So let's talk a little bit about coaching in general, because like you said, however many millions of people say they're coaches, only about 3,000 are actually ICF accredited. First of all, what's ICF accredited and why is that so important?
Yeah. So ICF Accredited is International Coaching Federation. They're a global organization. They're based in the US, actually. And so, for example, the importance is if you're doing corporate work like we do. So basically, we've been doing corporate work our company's been here since 2009, but I've been corporate for 30 years. So I've got a PhD. That doesn't do anything for me. I've got an accreditation. That gets me in a lot of corporate doors because you understand that there's a process, there's the code of ethics, and there's standards to be a coach. To be a coach, it's a real art and science to be a coach. It's not, and you find like most people when they first start, because they've been, and especially we have a lot of psychologists, we have a lot of different counselors that come and join us, and of course their approach is very much a telling and guiding, and so to change your style, it's been a bit of a shift for them, right? Because they've had to flip the way that they approach their clients. So instead of telling the client, you go in there and actually ask the right questions. And that's what we talk about, thought-provoking questions. The questions, and it's amazing, Amanda, because not only can you apply this as you're doing it, the more that you learn to be a coach, as you're doing this, I'm hearing stories that people are doing this with their partners and have got improved relationship, because now instead of going, but they're going, I'm really curious. What drove you to that kind of behavior? And so even like parents with their children, or even people, we've got a couple of executives in the sales environment, instead of telling their clients what they should do, they're asking. So it's just about flipping how you go about, instead of telling, and this is for all of us, if you've got something to tell someone, turn it into a question, reverse it, and then you'll see it's so beautiful, because the brain doesn't like to be told what to do. And so when we approach a situation, the brain contracts. But if we go in there with a curious mindset and go and ask the beautiful questions to draw it out from the individual, it's beautiful to watch. So there's an art and a science to it. The other part is you really learn how to listen. And that also is hard in itself, when you're sitting there and you're thinking about what's the next thing I want to say, and what's the next question, or you're distracted by something else. And so we always talk about listen with your heart. So when we stop listening with our ears or even our eyes, because we get distracted with narratives, or sometimes you could be sitting there coaching someone and thinking, what am I going to make for dinner tonight? Oh, I'm going to make bolognese. Oh, do I have the ingredients? Oh, I better go to the shops. So you can see that people, you can see it in their physiology, they're often a little tangent while they're coaching. So we would teach how, when you listen with your heart, and this is for all of us, a practice, it's beautiful because we see and hear things that we've never heard before. And so these are just some little tips of some of the things that we do in how is coaching. Now, coaching is not telling what to do. It's not giving people advice. It's not giving ideas or clues. It's actually understanding that every single one of us, have the resources we need to heal ourselves. We don't need to have someone to tell us what to do, because that's going to go in one ear and out the other. But when it comes from the inside out, because coaching is an inside job, you can see that people light up and go, oh my God, I came to that with my own mindset, my own resolution, my own whatever. It's so much more powerful.
This is great for astrology students as well, because I think a lot of times astrologers think that they need to go into a reading or a session with someone to give them answers, to tell them, what they want to know. And a lot of times people do come to an astrologer looking for an answer to a specific question. But it's like one of our, Rick Levine, one of our master astrologers who's been doing this for decades and decades, he says, if you're looking for an answer astrologer, I'm not your guy. Because he knows after all those decades of experience, first of all, it's a lot of responsibility to tell someone what to do, or what they should think, or what's going to happen, any of those things. Karmically, it's a big load to carry. But then also they don't get to have that transformative experience that you just talked about. They don't get to have their own realization. They don't get to own the insights the way that they would if they were the ones who came upon it. So I love that you're teaching people to ask the right questions. And I know we have that whole, like a whole Astrology Hub cohort of students going through your program right now, and that they're having an experience of, oh, wow, this is flipping the script. Instead of me going in as the all-knowing astrologer with all the answers to your future, I'm able to ask the right questions that are helping to guide the conversation and using the astrology as a reference point, which is brilliant, because we know any of us who have studied astrology, we know there's a ton of insights available to you within the astrology, but that there's a spectrum of possibilities for how it could be expressing. And so by having more of a dialogue, you're opening up a lot more potential for where that conversation can go, right?
Oh, 100%, 100%. And the other thing, the difference is just the feedback from the astrologers that are doing this course is normally they would sit with somebody's chart and study it and prepare for the session. Yeah. Whereas the coaching session, you don't prepare. You go in not knowing what you're stepping into. So it's a really different kind of, it's really flipping the switch, as in flipping the way that you go about and how you approach things. You go in there not knowing what somebody's going to ask or talk about or what they want to work on. So we don't need to, because you know what happens, Amanda, when we prepare for a session, let's say, what happens is then we have preconceived conceptions about what needs to take place. And then what happens is we're leading a conversation. And then what happens is we're also projecting our beliefs, our thoughts of what we've seen in somebody's chart or whatever it may be into the session. So I think that going in empty-handed and really going in, because we always say in our sessions, who's driving the bus? Is it the coach or the coachee? Because it is up to the coach. And ICF look at that. It is the coachee that drives the session. ICF looks at who's been talking the most, and they actually measure that the coachee should be talking 80% of the time and the coach only about 20% of the time, which is hard for astrologers because they do all the talking and then they've had to flip it. They've had profound shifts just doing it that way by going in and asking questions.
Catherine, I'm thinking that perhaps behind that is somewhat of an insecurity, right? Because we think we have to go in and provide all this value, and that the value comes from the level of preparation and the level of expertise and the level of advice and, all those things. But if we can rest into, it sounds like you're giving an infrastructure, you're giving an approach, and you're giving these students something that is effective and works, so they can rest in that, but also realize that they don't have to do everything. It's not all up to them to do it. And again, I'm thinking that underneath that thought that we do need to do everything is a bit of an insecurity about our value and the value that we bring. And I know astrology in general has that. There's sometimes this sense that we have to prove that it's valid, that it's helpful, that it's legitimate, all these things because of the way the world views it for the most part. Yeah. And so it just sounds like there's a bit of a liberation that can happen for someone utilizing this approach.
100%. There's definitely less angst and less, perfectionism plays out. Like it's got to be right. It's got to, like they come in and let go, and there's a lot more, let's just dance and see what happens in the room rather than I have to get it right, I have to prepare. And the thing is, everyone has a different experience with the different archetypes, whether it's Uranus, whether it's, Venus, Jupiter, it doesn't matter. But the thing is that it's how we have that experience, whether it's in its light or shadow, and it's with anything. But what we do talk about is that anytime something comes up, it's not about us trying to fix people up. Because, Amanda, if we go in thinking that someone is broken, we're projecting they are broken. And so we will keep receiving the brokenness of that individual. If we go in with the lens that you are enough, you are all that you are, and that you have all the resources, it's beautiful because you go in there. We have these three principles: non-judgment, we don't judge, because that blinds us from seeing what's truly in front of us. And then we have non-resistance. We will not resist what is in the room. Because sometimes you have to understand everyone has different values, different beliefs. And so we can't resist what's in the room. And then non-attachment, because sometimes as a coach or even as an astrologist or even as a counselor, or it doesn't matter, we have an attachment to this is the outcome I want, to happen for this person. We want to do so good for somebody else. But when we let go of attachment, we let go of resistance, and we let go of judgment, and we're just allowing to whatever comes up in the room, even when there's tears. I know when I first started, Amanda, if anyone started crying, I used to go in the opposite direction or go to the next question. But we learn to sit with what is. And that in itself, it could be as simple as, if your tears had a voice right now, what would they say? And it's so beautiful just to just sit with what is, which we haven't been taught to do that, Amanda. We've been conditioned to repress our emotions as a child. Like, oh, shush, don't do that. Oh, shush, don't say like that. And so when we actually sit with ourselves and sit with what is, beautiful things start happening, and understanding the non-judgment piece. Let's say self-doubt is a good one that comes up all the time. When it comes up, don't judge it's good or bad. We say there's no good, there's no bad, there's no right, there's no wrong, but it serves a purpose. And understand, how is it serving you? What's the purpose of self-doubt? And it could be as simple as it's because the purpose is that I want to get better. It's helping me improve. It's motivating me in some way. And then you could say, well, what is it protecting you from? What is self-doubt protecting you from? Well, it's protecting me from making mistakes. It's protecting me from failure. It's protecting me from criticism. And then we go, what's the secondary gain? Why are you hanging on to this self-doubt? Well, when I express I have self-doubt, that's how I get support. That's how I get sympathy. That's how I get connection. And I also, by hanging on to this self-doubt, I don't have to challenge anyone. I don't have to take responsibility. So when you see that these beautiful psychological archetypes are there for a reason, we gave birth to them, and understanding its purpose and why they're protecting us, it's a game changer. It really is.
Earlier, and I'd love to get to, for anybody interested in actually joining your school. And I know you have a cohort coming up that's going to be sort of reserved for any of the Astrology Hub students that want to join, which is awesome. But you talked earlier about positive psychology, and I don't want to assume that everybody knows what that is. So what is positive psychology versus non-positive psychology? What does it actually mean?
Yeah, good question. So positive psychology, and I love this question. Positive psychology, people think that positive psychology is all about being positive.
Right.
Absolutely not. Positive psychology is understanding that the brain naturally resists change. There's always going to be a resistance and a pushback. So it's about understanding that it does that it resists change. But positive psychology is about accepting what is, right? Which helps us build that resilient muscle. But it's also looking at and reframing it in another way. It's not about being positive all the time. It's about accepting all that is. So if you're feeling angry or frustrated or whatever that may be, we work with every single emotion that is available. So the framework itself, it really links into things like strength-based leadership. So we look at what are your strengths? Because if you think about it, and I don't know, back in the day when I was at school, we used to get the report cards. And so, I'd have my parents look at my report cards and go, oh, they go straight away where I didn't do well. And that's what most people do. They fix on the things that we are not good at. And what does that do? Well, all that does, it makes us a little bit better. But when we start looking at what are we good at, and that's part of positive psychology, working with our strengths, we catapult. So we talk about working with our strengths. We do this even in Rise and Thrive with our team. We work with our strengths. So for example, Amanda, I don't like data. I don't like working with numbers. So I don't do that. But I love all the creative stuff. That lights me up. And so we talk about, well, strength is not what you're good at, by the way. Everyone thinks that strength is what you're good at. No. I'm really good at cleaning my shower with my toothbrush. I'm the best super machine cleaner you could possibly imagine. But it's not what I'm good at. It's what lights me up. It's what gives me joy. It's what gives me purpose. What else can I say about it? We do lots of different activities like ACT, CBT, like cognitive behavior therapy, which we spoke about earlier on. But it is about embracing all that is without judging it.
I love it. It's so funny. I was noticing that sort of like, I think of it as almost like a negativity bias. We just did a series of surveys to our community. So I was looking through all the feedback, most of it, 99% of it, so positive and beautiful. And then you'd have those, I would see the few negative comments, and it was like, and I had to coach myself, like, don't give that any more weight than, yes, take whatever you can from it that's helpful, but don't discount all of the beautiful, amazing comments that were made. And it's just so amazing how we do that naturally. The one negative thing just like pops out, and then we just sort of like, oh yeah, all the amazing good things that are said. So I love that there's an actual way to help people reinforce looking at their strengths, reinforce looking at what they do really well, and like doubling down on those things. Yeah. I think that I can see that being extremely valuable.
I love the fact that you even brought up negative bias, because it is. You think of the brain's there to keep us safe. So it's going to look for anything that's triggering us in any way, shape or form. So negative mindset, we have a negative mindset. We've been conditioned that way. There's fear all around us, whether it's news, whether it's God, it's all around us, but then it's about what do we do with it? And how do we react to what's around us, or do we respond? And it's so true. Like I see this in the corporate world. I know, Amanda, you've got background, you've got experience in the corporate environment as well from a psychological aspect, but you'll see that when people get given, whether it's mid or end of year review, and they get given their feedback, they might have 20 positive things about them, but one thing, this is just the one thing you need to work on. And they will walk away and ruminate over that one thing rather than take that on. And that's what I call a fixed mindset. We get fixed. And so rather than walk away and go, feedback is a gift. And so what am I going to do with that? And that's what we do at the Academy. It's like, okay, this is the feedback I've got. Okay, so let's unpack it. Let's unpack it for you. What does that mean for you? And how do you feel? And what are you experiencing? Where in your body are you experiencing this emotion? And then we unpack it. We talk to that feeling, that experience, or that emotion.
Okay. So walk us through the program. Essentially, what I'm gleaning from all of this conversation, and then the other conversations we've had, is that you have this level 2. What does level 2 mean for the ICF accreditation?
Yeah, sure. There's 3 levels. So there's ACC, there's PCC, and MCC. So that's all. They're just basically the different levels is the offerings. Offerings that an academy would have. So even as a coach, your accreditations are based on how many hours you have done. Yeah. So basically, when you go through the academy, you'll be certified at a PCC level, which means that when you hand in your certificate to get your accreditation is just your hours, then you're at that level 2. So that's all it is. It's just based on what the program looks like, or how it's been mapped out, and what you offer. How many hours are you offering your students, and what are you offering?
Okay. So the quality of the program is accredited, certified. When you graduate, you actually have a certification to show, and that your program is mainly based around the positive psychology, but then there's also this astrological component. And so if you're an astrology student, there's a little bit of a leg up in a way, because you already have that background, and now you're learning the coaching piece so you can bring it into a practice. Walk us through the program. Like, what does it look like? How long does it take? What is the commitment? How does someone actually do this? And then what's the result? What can they expect when they're done with the program? Will they be able to get a job? Will they be able to put this to use? How does that all work?
Yeah, sure. Great question. So first, let me talk about the 3 different avatars that we have. So that means that we have some people that join us want to be a coach. Yep. Some people join the academy because for personal and professional development. And then another one, if they're a leader or leading a team, they come and do the program. So there's 3 different types of avatars that we have within the academy. Mm-hmm. The program is a 12-month program. It's really 7 modules that gets released every 6 weeks. But some people do it less than 12 months, but we say 12 months. Within that, what happens is you have 7 modules that you work through. You have, because we've got people from all over the world, we've got people from the US, UK, Australia, Japan. So we've made sure that we've mapped out everything so we can accommodate to the different time zones. So there's, once you're part of the program, you get broken up into groups of 3. These are what you called your mentoring groups. And in that group, you're going to be together for that 12 months where you work on real life situations. So we say what goes on tour stays on tour, and beautiful magic happens in this space. This is where I see the when I talk about insights and epiphanies and beautiful things happening within that space. Then there are Q&As or coaching course. There's 24 of them. You can go to all of them, but you only need to do 10. And they're obviously, for the people based in the US, it's like a Saturday. Well, it's your Friday afternoon, our Saturday. And then for the other side of the world is during the week. There's also, we have an online community, so Facebook and LinkedIn, where we do monthly what they're called based on a topic that's linking to positive psychology. So it's anything to do that with what we've got in the academy, some of the topics that we cover. We actually do that because we're really big on keeping up to date with the research as well, because you'll have access to a coaching library that has books, articles, videos, audios, everything. You have access to what's called a learning management system. And this is where you'll find your workbooks, but your theory books. And in the theory, understanding that everyone learns in different ways. So you can watch a video, audio if you're going for a walk or in the car, or for those that are kinesthetic like me, like to download it and highlight it, you can do that. So you've got access to your learning management system. That is self-paced. So everything pretty much is self-paced. We've got masterclasses that you need to attend to as well. The only thing that's set in concrete is your 10 mentoring classes. And once you're broken into your groups of 3, we look at what is the best time for that group, and we set the classes, map them out over the period of 12 months. It's beautiful. Like, honestly, nobody fails. Everyone passes the program because we've got beautiful assessors. We've got buddies. And even what I'm finding is that even that the people that are part of the academy have started their external little group as well. So they catch up together, and they we'll help each other through their workbooks, or if they've been assessed on their workbook, they really help each other. It's a beautiful community. Once they finish, they can come. We have a Coach and Grow app. I know you have an app as well. So if they want to come and work for Rise and Thrive, automatically they come into the system and start coaching straight away. So if they want to, not everybody, because there are some coaches that want to start their own business and have their own platforms, and they can do both. We have associates that have their own and come and work with us. But that's pretty much in a nutshell. I hope I've explained it as best as I could.
Yes. Okay. So we're going to drop the link. It's astrologyhub.com/coaching. And so we're going to put that in the show notes. And Catherine and her team have agreed to do a special kind of like get a taste of what the program is for our Astrology Hub community. So make sure you go to astrologyhub.com/coaching, and all the details are there if you want to like try it. But you are starting a new cohort for our community on June 3rd, correct?
Correct.
June 3rd. So this would be an amazing opportunity. Again, if once you graduate, then you can join the Rise and Thrive coaching app. And do most people that do that start working immedately? Like, do they get opportunities right away?
Straight away. So I just want to explain too, a little bit what's different, because we've just also reached out to some ICF accredited coaches because we don't have enough coaches that support the work that's coming in. One thing that I'd like to say is we're keeping our app I know there's other coaching apps out there that I've spoken to other coaches where there's thousands of coaches and they're not getting the work. We're keeping it very limited for us because we want to make sure that everybody gets work. And so once you become part of that, on the app, you can pick your own hours, and that's the beautiful. You can set your own time that you're available. So some people could do it part-time or full-time. It's up to them.
Amazing. I mean, so I'm always looking for opportunities for astrology students to be able to put their love of astrology, like to create a life where they get to immerse themselves in that as much as possible. Because I know, like, when I fall in love with something, it's like, I just want to have this conversation. I just want to be talking about astrology and growth and evolution and consciousness and all these things. So how can I create my world so that I get to be having that conversation all the time? And I know a lot of you are like that. It's like you want to be passionate about your work and you want to be helping people with the thing that you love that has helped you. So this is such an amazing way to do that, to really marry your love of astrology with the ability to apply a framework that can help a wide range of people, whether or not they're interested in astrology, whether or not they even know anything about astrology. This is where it's like your knowledge of it will help you do a better job, but it will reach more people because they don't actually have to be for sure coming for the astrology. And I just think it's a beautiful opportunity for our community. And I'm so grateful that you approached me months ago and said, hey, I have this idea. I feel like you guys would be perfect for this. And it was one of those things that when you brought it to me, I was like, ooh, that's an amazing idea. Let's see if people are interested. And then we did one podcast episode and about 16 of the people from Astrology Hub joined a cohort. And I get to meet 3 of them here very shortly and introduce all of you to them on the podcast. But I mean, why do you think, Catherine, that our community is thriving so much in this program? I mean, I know that everybody thrives in the program, but why do you think the Astrology Hub students in particular are doing so well?
Well, gosh, I think you'll hear it from them themselves. Of course, I'm going to say it's because of their knowledge, one, of astrology, but you don't need to. There's actually a couple of people from Astrology Hub who are just new to astrology. So they're being followed Astrology Hub. And so the astro coaching aspect are tools only. So we make that really clear. These are tools, online assessments and tools, and I can tell you about it. For them, it's changed their way they approach astrology. It's changed their way that they do a reading now. So they go in there, apply coaching instead of going telling, and the results that they're getting from doing it, just asking questions about what's in their chart, because that's the area they want to work in. It could be as simple as, I want to work on transformation. I want to work on a relationship, and so they could have a look at what's going in that space. But instead of telling them, just get the person to tell the story of what's really happening by asking the question. And so they've had a really amazing, lots of shifts for them, applying it in there. I mean, some of them have a business. They're astrologers, they're readers. They have that as a business. So it's really changed their ways of working.
I've spoken to a lot of astrologers through the years. And some of them talk about how they're good at reading the chart. They can read what the chart is saying. But when the person starts to ask them, well, how do I work on that? And how do I transcend this blind spot, or stop making the same mistake over and over and get myself out of this pattern, or whatever it is, they don't feel equipped to help the person at that level, because that isn't always what astrology training is about. And so I love, again, this is just such a beautiful marriage of 2 very powerful tools, when put together, can absolutely transform people's lives. And so, Catherine, thank you. I mean, just thank you for approaching me. Thank you for sharing your academy and the opportunity with our community. Thank you for offering some amazing ways for our particular community to get to know what you're doing even deeper, so they can know for sure if they want to make this level of commitment for their career. But for any of you who are out there and going, God, this sounds amazing, just make sure you go to astrologyhub.com/coaching. And Catherine and her team are so helpful. These are beautiful people who are totally committed to their mission and to helping their students. And so if you have questions and things like that, they're available for that. And anything else you want to share, Catherine, before we close up?
No, I just say thank you. I was just saying also, like, I honestly love the fact that we've got Astrology Hub students in the academy. It's really changed the dynamic and some of the conversations. And I've actually learned a lot myself from them. So as
Yay!
much as I'm sharing knowledge, I've actually learned so much. It's been amazing. So it's wonderful. It really is. And I do see a perfect match. It's just, I can see them work really well hand in hand, but you'll hear it from them, the students themselves soon. And I just want to say thank you for allowing this partnership to take place. It's been wonderful.
Mm. Okay. Well, Catherine, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for tuning in. To those of you out there listening or watching, thank you for being a part of our community. Thank you for making astrology a part of your life and maybe even making coaching a part of your life as well. And I can't wait to connect with you on the next episode. If you are interested, be on the lookout for the podcast episode we're going to release in a few days, where I'll be interviewing 3 Astrology Hub community members who are part of the Astrology Hub cohort going through the Rise and Thrive Coaching Academy. So you'll get to hear directly from them what their experience is, what they're getting out of the program. So make sure you tune into that. And we'll look forward to catching up with you on the next episode. Take care, everyone.